empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order live show on Thursday night, the best night of the entire week. We had an epic bank chat today leading into National Signing Day, which is a little under 2 weeks out. A ton of stuff to talk about with NIL, last minute visits by coaches, last official visits of the year. You're trying to find a running back, trying to find some guys. A plea from Gene Smith to donate to NIL, which I thought was kind of very interesting to get Nevada's take on that. And obviously, we have a date with the Georgia Bulldogs, the Goliath of college football at this point. What an opportunity for the team. We're going to talk about all of it. And we're going to take your questions. So fire away. Start cranking those questions in the chat. As always, if you can leave us a like down below, comment, what do we need to do to beat these Bulldogs? And who do you want us to land at running back? We don't have a running back yet, so we're going to get somebody in the class. But we appreciate you guys as always. And as always, we're always very gracious. We thank you guys so much for tuning in. You have a lot of options for entertainment. Trying to knock this out before Thursday Night Football starts. Whopper between the Raiders and the Rams. Baker Mayfield might actually be starting tonight, so that'd be hilarious. He's been there for about 5 days, and what a day that'll be if he gets to play the Raiders tonight. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. We love you guys. We had a blast on the Scoop today. Thursday is the best day of the week with the bank chat. So I'm going to get to Nevada. Get those questions fired up in the chat. We're going to be answering everything you guys got. So, bring in my good friend Nevada. Nevada, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Love Thursdays. Love these live shows, and yeah, the Scoop's been hopping lately, man. It's fun when you go on the message board, and by the time you answer a question, that like 5 other ones pop up, and it's cooking. Lots of excitement about this Georgia game. Yeah, like you said, you've got first National Signing Day coming up here in a couple of weeks. So a lot of things flying with NIL, with recruiting, with guys in the bowl game, guys out of the bowl game, guys getting healthier, and the OSU game plan starting to take shape. So lots to talk about, and ready to go.
Yeah, it's a crazy time right now. We lost Mark Fletcher, a kid. Q was a kid that's been in the class for a long time. He got offered a lot of money, over $700,000 to be a Florida Gator. They took that. That is a big number for anybody, so you can't fault them, and they're staying home in the great state of Florida. Can't fault that either, but man, has it put us in a pickle at running back. Initially, we thought we were going to get like a Richard Young and a kind of a 1A 5-star guy, and then you round it out with a Mark Fletcher, like a 4-star guy. And then all of a sudden, we're a week out. We don't have a running back at all. We're going after a kid in Georgia as a 3-star guy. He's kind of fading us a little bit. So it is, we're kind of up the creek a little bit. Nevada, your thoughts on the running back recruiting, the running back situation? Obviously you look at a room next year, Trey is there. You got Evan Pryor. Mayan, in my opinion, likely is going to go off to the NFL. Dallin Hayden, Chip Trevanum. That still is a pretty damn good room. That's an A+ room in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on the running back room right now?
Well, first thing, let me correct something that you said earlier. Fletcher was $3 million to Florida, $750,000 a year to sign with the Gators. So, as much as I've been critical of Tony Alford on the board, and I think a lot of it's merited. I think his running back rotations this year have been curious. Some of his decisions have been curious, and have been real head scratchers. And I always go back, and I hate to bring this up, but he was the guy that was starting Master Teague over Trey Sermon, and that to me was woof. So I think Alford's getting some heat. Alford may be in line for a head coaching job, but I think there's probably going to be a change there at some point. And the Buckeyes right now are looking for a running back, even though you said our running back room is not in terrible shape. And I wouldn't mind the kid from Georgia. I wouldn't mind. Look, there's a couple of Ohio kids that I think are interesting as well. And you also could go to the portal. There are running backs in the portal that you could go that could help you right now. So I'm not as concerned about that. But I think it's a situation where Ohio State should can only go after somebody if they think that they can help us, and and you never know. I mean, I remember when Mike Williams committed to Ohio State, that was not met with wild acclaim, and there was no parties being thrown or ticker tape parades over Mayan Williams committing to Ohio State. It was, who's this 3-star meatball from Cincinnati that's coming to Ohio State, and plan B, C, D, whatever they wanted to call him. And Mayan Williams is a hell of a college running back. And I'm so glad to have him on the team. So glad that we get a chance to watch him play. And he's terrific in every way. So, you just never know with these running backs. And, I'm to me, it kind of makes recruiting and things interesting coming down the stretch to see who they're going to get, because I'm confident that the Buckeyes will get somebody that can help. And even if they don't, like I said, I think we got options that we'll be fine, and you shouldn't have any immediate short-term, medium-term, or long-term issues there.
Yeah, running backs, it's a spot I just never really worry about, because we've always had a good running back. With the portal, recruiting's never meant less. You could have had the dream scenario and taken Richard Young and Mark Fletcher. And after 1 year, Mark Fletcher might have transferred out, or Richard Young might have transferred out, or they both might have transferred out. If they didn't get enough touches, enough carries, they were really scared to death of losing Evan Pryor after he had that dynamic spring game where he looked fantastic. He's looking at being the number 3 guy, getting, maybe 50 carries on the year and not a lot of touches to go around when you have these great receivers and you've got, good tight end and a couple good running backs in front of you. You could go elsewhere and be the horse and get 250 touches and go off to the NFL and start making a name for yourself. So they were really worried about Evan Pryor taking off after the spring game. And that's part of what it is now. It's like, if some of these kids that show out in the spring game and they have a big game, all of a sudden you're like, man, like, is he going to be shopping? Is someone going to come after him with a bag? Because, the tampering is legendary at this point, where these kids enter the portal, that a day later, they already know where they're going and they've already got the offer and they're already accepted and it's already ready to go. So it's like, a lot of back alley deals now. These kids have agents now. CJ Stroud went to the Super Bowl this year with David Mugliata, who's Justin Fields and Jalen Ramsey and Micah Parsons. He's like the super agent now with Athletes First. And, he's got CJ, and he had Dwayne Haskins. He's got a nice little pipeline going with the quarterbacks. He has Deshaun Watson. And these guys, they can talk. It's kind of like, it honestly reminds me of what the coaches used to do when Urban Meyer showed up, and he said, I never talked to Ohio State until after the Monday after they lost to Michigan or whatever. And I'm like, so you got that whole contract done and all the particulars done in like a day. And again, it's just plausible deniability. Like, you don't have to talk, but, your agent can talk to their peeps and get everything ironed out and written and whatever. Then you can always say, I never talked to Ohio State. Yeah, because your guy did. Your people talk to their people. And like, I heard how everything went down in the back room of that. That's just how it is. It's like Luke Fickell landing at Wisconsin, a day after their season. Like that was worked on for a hot minute. That wasn't just like, oh, hey, middle of the night, let's call Luke Fickell and he's going to be on a jet the next day being announced as the head coach of Wisconsin, unseating Jim Leonhard. Nevada, what are your thoughts on Luke, actually? That's something, a lot of people, after that Michigan game, people were saying, hey, let's go get Luke Fickell. He's a Buckeye, whatever. Your thoughts on how Luke will do at Wisconsin?
I think he's going to do terrific. And I think, he's, we're always looking for who's the next head coach at Ohio State, because you always got to be, you always have to have a plan, your plan B, your plan C, guys that can step in. And, Luke auditioning at Wisconsin's, from an Ohio State perspective, I think is great, because we're going to find out, another data point about how good of a coach he is. And, if and when the head coaching job at Ohio State ever opens up, now, at least you've got another viable option that's familiar with the league. So I only see it as upside. I wish him nothing but the best. And I actually think it's a good thing for Ohio State, directly and indirectly.
I think it's fantastic, because you can figure out if Luke can win at a high level, because Wisconsin, they might not be a 5-star, top 5-ish, 10-ish program, but they're a top 20, 25 program, in terms of job and what you can do. I mean, it hasn't been enough. They've never won a national title, but, they're very formidable. They've won Rose Bowls before. It's not like being at Cincinnati, where you're sitting there and, if you go to a champion, or excuse me, a playoff, it's like a miracle. It's something that's going to happen once every 50 years or whatever, every 20 years, every 15 years. Cincinnati's it's a good job, but you can't sustain that level of excellence at a place that doesn't have the resources to do it. But Wisconsin does have the resources, and Wisconsin is in the much weaker Big Ten West. So you're not running into Penn State and Michigan and Ohio State every year. You're playing Minnesota. That's your big rival, so that's a beatable when Wisconsin is really good. They dog walk Minnesota. It's not even, it's like 66-7 or whatever. And I think that's what Luke's going to get to. He's going to get back to being that big nasty running game, giant offensive linemen. Wisconsin born and bred guys that are just really nasty, mean guys, and they're always fun to go against. It's a program that I hated them, probably worse than Michigan, but I always admired them just because they were always tough, and they had some dirtbags in their program, and Bielema was kind of a shit talker, and his players kind of took on that edge, but. They're always a tough out, and I respect that. You respect teams that are hard to get past, teams that they handle their business. When they're playing a Rutgers or an Indiana, when they're good, they're going to win 77-10 and just beat the pulp out of a team. And they've had the same identity for 30 years, ever since Barry Alvarez is the head coach, and he's the athletic director. Now he's kind of like the overseer, and one of his proteges, in Chris McIntosh is the athletic director. They've run the same offense for 30 years. Defense is always tough. They run the shit out of the ball. They've got these big, nasty guys. Love their program. Nevada, we're going to pivot into the NIL space. This was an interesting day today. So Gene Smith, and I kind of apologize, this is only like a small segment of the letter. But Gene Smith put out kind of a peculiar little note on Twitter and on the Ohio State site, kind of everywhere, talking about how we need people to support these NIL funds. What was your initial reaction to that when you first saw that come across the wire today?
Well, it was different. I mean, it was, I hadn't seen that before. And I think it's, you got to think about what NIL, NIL was created ostensibly to create, revenue opportunities for players whose name and image and likeness was being used. And the example, the EA Sports video game, most notably type of thing. And now it's kind of morphed into, I said on the board, it's morphed into, every player has a price, and let's find out what they're going to cost. And, I think for Ohio State is still using NIL somewhat defensively. They're doing a good job of securing opportunities for their existing players, for players that are currently on the roster. But I think, the great teams in NIL right now are going through using it as an offensive tool. You mentioned the transfer portal, and from the transfer portal standpoint, when you see guys, it's like when NFL free agency starts, and then all of a sudden guys sign a day later with teams, and that there was tampering going on. Well, it's the same thing with the transfer portal. When guys were talking about, I'm entering the transfer portal, and then they know exactly where they're going. Well, there was tampering going on that whole time. So I think for Ohio State, this Gene Smith thing is it's a little recognition that they've got to get more aggressive with NIL. They've got to use it more as a tool. They've got these three collectives set up. I'm not sure quite how effective any of those three collectives, particularly are, or how impressive the people are that are running any of those collectives. But the best collectives that are run across the country are run by mega donors, by guys that are truly big time hitters that are the lead donors themselves to these collectives. So they make it really simple for people to go because they're putting their money where their mouth is. And I'm not sure we have that with any of the collectives. I think the collectives all do a nice job in terms of raising money and trying to do things, but we're lacking that one big mega donor that's going to take this on as a labor of love and kind of lead this. And frankly, I think that's the difference in Ohio State right now and these other programs. You've got 5, 6, 7 programs that are just completely skirting the rules. We'll name them. The Floridas, the Miamis, the Texas A&Ms, the USCs. They're just throwing money at people, and they don't care. Jordan Addison, you're a Pitt, come to USC. We don't care. The running back that was committed to Louisville, Ruben. I can't think of his last name now, but when he ends up at Texas A&M after Texas A&M's legendary class, I mean, they just don't care. And for Ohio State, it's a cultural thing. Ohio State's always been behind on these things. They were behind on oversigning, gray shirting, red shirting, use of consultants, medical exemptions. I mean, transfer portal, you name it. Ohio State's always been behind. And at NIL, they got to get going. So I saw Gene Smith's thing today as being a kind of a call to arms of people saying, we got to get going. And that's his admission that they need to be better.
Yeah, it was kind of stunning. I mean, it's a different world now that you have to actually compete, with your fundraising for your athletic department versus bringing in money for for these kids just to directly pay them, and I think that's something that's going to always be intriguing to me is how do you deal with a kid, like when Jermaine Matthews was a kid that was rumored to go visit the Miami Hurricanes, and all of a sudden, he turned that off. He kind of poo-pooed that. He got rid of it. He ends up saying he's going to graduate early. He's not going to go take that visit. But I just think that it's an interesting time, man, because God, it's like how many people really want to pay to give these kids, a nicer car than they have, or designer clothes, or whatever it is. It's like most of this money is going towards flashy stuff. It's going towards a higher quality of life, and and if that's what it takes, because we're basically like a baby NFL, then that's what it is. But I don't know, man. It's really tough right now. I think that these guys they got to get aggressive. I think the hardest part about Ohio State is we don't have film night. We don't have oil barons. I think part of our problem is that we've been too good, and we've been so good that all of a sudden you don't have to call to arms. Like A&M's been terrible. Like they beat Bama last year, but really fell on their face this year, and they're dying to win. Ohio State's won. Like over the last 20 years, nobody's won more than Ohio State other than Alabama. So is there really that hunger, that diehard hunger to donate and get us to the top when we've already kind of been at the top without NIL? And do people realize how big of a threat NIL is? Because I think that of all the things that I worry about, just for what we do for a living, Ohio State winning is great for business. Ohio State loses, it stings us pretty hard. If Ohio State falls way behind in NIL, man, it's a catastrophe. It's really tough on us, and we have to adjust accordingly. But I think that people, a lot of people donated today. I saw it all over Twitter. I saw it over our board. A lot of people are kind of taking the call to arms, so to speak, to go, and it's just interesting. We had a super chat. Appreciate you, David Greenshield. Nevada, with Trey Henderson possibly being out, what do you think about Dallin Hayden for this game coming up?
Well, first of all, I don't think Trey Henderson's out. Secondly, I think any of the running backs will be helpful, and it's just it's gonna be helpful to have a running back room that's not in the condition that it was for the Michigan game. For the Michigan game, you had Mayan, who was hobbling, Trey, who was out, Chip, who was unproven, and Dallin, who didn't play a whole lot. So I think it's all hands on deck against Georgia. I like the way Dallin plays. Dallin reminds me of I know one of your favorite backs, and Antonio Pittman, in terms of a guy that just wasn't flashy. Antonio Pittman wasn't going to juke 9 guys in the hole or something like that, but hit the hole with authority. Went there, and so it's high praise to compare Dallin to Pittman in my book, because Antonio was one of my all-time favorite players, all-time underrated player at Ohio State, and a guy that I thought was was absolutely terrific. And I think Dallin can certainly be that good, and love to see him get his chance against Georgia, because we're gonna need everybody to be on against Georgia, because that's a tall order to win, and we're gonna need Dallin to contribute.
Yeah, I totally agree. Shout out Israel. He's on every show. Appreciate you, says OHCIO. Appreciate you guys. My 411 boys, appreciate you guys. Guys, keep the questions coming. We're going to keep talking through some of this stuff. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what we can do against Georgia. I think the more I've watched Georgia's, I watched the SEC championship game today. Like I watched the coaches film. I watched the Oregon game, which is a game where they dog walked Oregon pretty good. And Oregon ended up being pretty decent. Bo Nix, had a nice year. And so they weren't like a cream puff, but Georgia just smacked them. I mean, it was 35-3 at one point. I can't remember what it ended up at, but that's Dan Lanning, and that's with Dan Lanning, who was the DC at Georgia last year when they had the best defense in college football history. He was first game as head coach at Oregon, plays the Georgia Bulldogs, so he knows their personnel inside and out, and there's nothing they really could do. I mean, there was just a complete massacre. But I think our offensive line has got to play with their hands better. They just have to. I watched them against Michigan. It's just an area where they like if they got 15 practices or 13. I don't know if the first two that they use counted as bowl practices. You got to work on hand placement, man. I'm telling you, Georgia's guys play so well with their hands. They're so elusive. They're super, super slippery. Jalen Carter, I think, is the best player in the country. He's their defensive tackle. Probably be a top 3 pick. I think it's going to be a coin flip between him and Will Anderson to see who's the top defensive guy that goes. Obviously, I think Bryce Young will probably go number 1 to the Texans. But I just think that he is a really good player. The more I study him, the more I see the explosive pass rushing. He's not quite as big as Richard Seymour, but Richard Seymour was a Bulldog and a Hall of Famer, and it's kind of what this kid's going to be. Really good player. But our guys, they got to play with their hands better. They got to play more physical brand of football than they did against Michigan. And Michigan, their guys, we didn't get a lot of movement on double teams. There's just a lot. They left a lot of meat on the bone in that game. You watch it, and a lot of stuff that we could have done better. Nevada, we're still 3 weeks out or so from Michigan. From Georgia. What are your thoughts as we get a little closer? Starting next week, they'll start practice. They might even practice this weekend because they've got the coaches are still on the road finishing up recruiting. The dead period starts, but they're going to get cranked up in bowl practice. What are your thoughts 3 weeks out about the Georgia game?
Well, it's funny because I generally go to I look at a number of different data points on this stuff. Obviously, you're trying to get the measure of the team. You're trying to get see how the matchup goes, and I like a lot of times to talk to the gamblers in Vegas, and was talking to a guy who I consider to be one of the sharpest of the sharps about the game, and one of the things that he was pointing out to me was right now I think about it's better than 90% of the action right now is on Georgia, and the line's still staying at 6.5, which is very interesting. The line is not moving. He's like, look, Ohio State traditionally as an underdog has been a terrific bet. They've always overperformed in those situations. And I harken back on, the 2 national championships truly in my lifetime. I'm not going to count 68 because I was 6 years old at the time, but in 02, 03 and 14, 15, 02, 03, we were huge underdogs to Miami. Nobody really gave us much of a chance in that game. We'd slipped by everybody all year, played 9 close games down to the wire, and came in and upset Miami, a team that's a lot of people consider to be among some of the best college football teams in history, and won that game. And then you go to 14-15, and you beat Bama as a huge underdog, and then you beat Oregon. I think we were underdogs to Oregon as well. So, being an underdog for Ohio State in this spot traditionally has been a terrific spot for Ohio State. You've got the better quarterback. And I just have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to perform better than people think that we're going to. And I think this is going to be one of those games, not sitting and predicting an Ohio State victory, but I think it's going to be a better game than a lot of people think. And I think it's going to be a 1-score game. I think it's going to be a close game right down to the wire. And I just more and more I think about. I just think the game's going to be close, and it's absolutely, you're going to have to play well. You're going to have to play mistake free, but it's a winnable game. Georgia is not, they're not Alabama in 2020. This is not a great juggernaut of a team. It's a very, very good team with some terrific, transcendent talents on the defensive line. Some guys that are, great players. But frankly, the defense, in my opinion, is not as good as the defense was last year. Now, I think they had like 9 guys drafted off the defense last year or whatever it is. So it's, that's saying something. But Georgia can be had, and you can move the ball on those guys, and you can stop sets a minute. Let's stop the running game. They don't have like great running backs or great wide receivers. Let's stop them. Make Stetson Bennett try to beat us, and let's see how that game ends up at the end. But that's my thinking as of today.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I think being a dog, especially when you lose to Michigan, you've had the ability to stew on that for a long time, and really the only way that this team will get another crack at it is if they made the playoffs, which, they were able to get in after, Utah did yeoman's work against USC. And you get to see this team at least one more time. Whereas, if you go to the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl, then we likely don't see CJ Stroud. We likely don't see Paris Johnson. We don't see DeWand. There would have just been a mass amount of opt-outs, in my opinion. And you don't really get to see that team ever again. So we get one more chance to see the team. What an opportunity. Again, I always, I've said 50 times that playing Georgia first is much more favorable than playing Michigan first, because you need every minute of every day to get ready for Georgia. Michigan, you already have a book on, you already have a scouting report on. I'm not saying it's easier, but if you say, hey, you want to take a harder opponent on and have a month to get ready for them, then absolutely, because you can throw in some wrinkles, you can do whatever you do, and then if you do, pull the upset and beat the Georgia Bulldogs down in Atlanta, then you've got a week to get ready for Michigan and win a national title. So this could go down as the greatest run in Ohio State history. Great time to be on BuckeyeScoop.com, because I'm telling you, we are bringing a ton of info every day. Coaching change updates. You have Kevin Wilson off to Tulsa. Who's getting promoted? How's the staff going to look? I mean, we've talked about it all. Going to move on to Jackson Smith-Njigba a little bit. His dad came out, tweeted this today. Nevada, I want your reaction to this. He said, being with my son yesterday for his first day of rehab and seeing his limitations for myself gave me peace with our family's choice to get my son healthy. Encouraging him to play would be selfish and abusive. I'm at peace because I know he's in the right hands for recovery. Nevada, I love your take on that. I didn't love this statement at all. I thought it was kind of, I don't know what the words, I'm trying to be very measured here, but what were your thoughts when you initially read that?
It was an odd statement. There were so many odd things about it. I understand what they're trying to do, but when you say things like first day of rehab, implying that he hasn't been in sort of an active rehab for the past, 3 months, 2.5 months, whatever it's been, and that OSU has not been quote unquote rehabbing him, is an odd statement. And then when you talk about the right hands, that implies that he was in the wrong hands before. And that is another odd statement. So I couldn't help but take this as a shot at the OSU training staff, the OSU rehab program. I know Exos is good, and I've been involved in that business before. I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with combine prep and getting guys ready and high level athletic rehabilitation. But the OSU staff's really good at this, and OSU will spend whatever, they'll do whatever, they'll bring in whomever, So the idea that I just got the sense that they say it, that somehow he wasn't receiving the top-notch care from the right people, but now he is, and so he's now on the right path. It just left me. I really wish they hadn't said anything and just kind of left. It's bad enough that that's fine. Personal decision. Can't even say that I disagree with the decision, which I know is probably going to upset a lot of people. But hey, Jackson's going to live his own life and do his own thing. He's going to be a high draft pick. And he's going to make millions of dollars. So I get it. I understand. But I found the statement odd, and I probably wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly would. I know you can't keep it real nowadays without getting just, because there's nothing Jackson can say other than, hey, I'm playing, that's not going to get him, beat down by some Ohio State fans. But, I didn't agree with it. When he says it was his first day of rehab, and I'm like, well, you pulled it like against Notre Dame. That was September 5th. So September, October, November. I mean, what have we been doing for the last 4 months? And then you re-pull it against, if it was Toledo and Iowa. And, again, like, I know he went down and saw James Andrews. You broke that on Buckeye Scoop that he went and saw James Andrews. He wasn't with the team. He wasn't at practice. So it's like, what's he been doing for 4 months? If he was, I don't know. Like, if you have a pulled hamstring, generally you're at the Woody Hayes getting treatment 3-4 times a day. And treatment isn't like a 20-minute deal. It's like hours. It's like, I actually pulled my hamstring in 2007. We're getting ready to play LSU. We got our asses kicked by Florida the year before. And, so Jim Tressel, God bless him, we had this thing where we're going to do this thing called SEC Tiger Drill, where we're going to run gassers in the middle, like the later part of practice, and then scrimmage right after. Like, so we were going to be exhausted, and then we had to go play in scrimmage. So, like, we're running these gassers, and we're indoors at the Woody Hayes. The doors are shut. It's hot as hell. So everyone's, dehydrated, you're sweating like pigs, whatever. So we get to the end, and, I always won all the sprints when I was an offensive lineman just because I was a captain, and it's like I had to win all the sprints, so I couldn't dog it. I had to beat everybody, and it's just a pride thing. So, we leg out, we do like 3 half gassers. I run the first 2, win them both. Feel a little tight. Third one, leg it out at the very end of it. I pull my damn hamstring, and I'm like, I was really angry. So, I can't practice. Immediately go to the trainers. I'm like, look, I heard it pop. It's not good. We already play LSU in like literally 3 weeks. It's before we went home for Christmas. And, I'm like, shit. We didn't play till like January 7th because it was a championship game. There was no playoffs or anything. But man, I was around the clock. I was there 6 a.m. getting treatment. I wasn't practice, get treatment during practice, get treatment again after practice, get late night practice treatment. I was running in a pool. I was doing Stairmaster. I was doing everything I can to try to keep my cardio up. And when I went home for Christmas, I remember my my athletic director at Perry High School opened up the pool. We have a pool at Perry High School, and I was running in the pool just to do something to get some exercise. So it's like, it's kind of upsetting because I knew Bob Sweeney and Doug Callan are 2 of the best trainers you could ever dream of being with, and I was always beat to shit, and those guys always took great care of me, rehabbed me. I had 3 knee surgeries, shoulder surgery, ankle, broke my foot. So, I had 7 or 8 surgeries when I played, and those guys did a great job. And Dr. Kading and Chris Kading and Dr. Borches both did great jobs as team doctors who had to do surgeries on me. And like my body, it feels great right now. I have no lingering pain from football, which is a miracle of God. And it just shows how good their treatment was. So it upsets me that people would say that, this is the first day of rehab, and they'd say something like encouraging them to play would be selfish and abusive. And I'm like, I'm from, and again, I'm different, but I'm all about strapping up one more time. Cause like I pulled my hamstring, like I didn't have to play against LSU, but I was team captain. I was an All-American. Like if I sit out cause my hamstring isn't great, and it wasn't 100% healed when I played LSU, but I still went out and played because I don't leave my guys out there hanging, and I don't want to have a backup out there getting, fed to the wolves on national TV. I was like, I'm going to go out there and strap it up. If I play great, great. If I don't, I don't. If it hurts my draft stock, screw it. I don't care. And I would have said F it, but I know that, Sue's on here and she's a woman, so I don't want to swear too much, but I've already sworn too many times. But I don't know. It hurt me that they said that. It's amazing that he would say it was his first day of rehab because I don't know what that accomplishes. And again, like, if they hear about this or hear about me saying this, like, I have no ill will towards Jackson. Honestly, if Jackson came out and said, look, I don't want to play because I'm rusty. Georgia's got the best secondary in the country. I don't want to get locked down and hurt my draft stock. I'd have been fine. At least you're being honest. Like, you just say, look, I don't want to play. I'm good. I didn't play all year. I'm going to be a top 10 pick. I'm literally 1 40-yard dash away from being a top 10 pick and being Garrett Wilson or Olave or one of those guys and signing for $18 million. So if you say that, I'm good because I get it, because that's what it really is. It's not, there ain't no hamstring on earth that takes 4 months to recover from. And I've pulled my hamstring multiple times as a football player. Again, it's not, your leg didn't get sawed off. You didn't step on a landmine and lose your body, but I don't know. Any rebuttal to that, Nevada? That's kind of long-winded, but I've literally pulled my hamstring and been cared for by Ohio State, and you can get back. It just depends how hard you want to work in rehab and heal and stick to the plan.
Yeah, I think nobody really knows because everybody's different. Not all hamstring injuries are the same. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I think we've probably given this one enough airtime. Like I said, I think at this point, for everybody's sake, I think the less said, the better. So my final thing, that statement was odd and probably didn't need to be made.
Yeah, is what it is. All right, so we have a super chat. Appreciate you guys bringing these super chats. Sue, appreciate the she's like, I'm good with F-bombs. Trying to keep it clean on here, Sue. Don't tempt me because I will do it. So super chat, appreciate you guys. This is from Amateurs Pro Pulling Arm Wrestling. So do not arm wrestle me. You'll probably rip my arm out of the socket. But I appreciate you guys. Nevada, do you believe the Buckeyes are soft because of Day's mentality / personality / philosophies, or just a sign of the times? Go Bucks, please flip the switch. Appreciate you for that one. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Look, I don't think we're soft, but I think that we do some things. We've talked about how we're more pass happy than we've been in the past, how we practice more to the pass. We practice less of the power inside zone, power running game. And I think things like that will kind of manifest itself, and people want to, lump it and say that one word. And this may be something that you and I completely disagree on, but from my standpoint, we didn't lose the game to Michigan because we were soft. We lost the game to Michigan because we didn't execute, and because Michigan executed. Because J.J. McCarthy played a hell of a game against intense pressure that Knowles put him out there on, and we had some defensive breakdowns, some solo defensive breakdowns, 3 or 4 different ones that turned into touchdowns, and they cashed them all in for points. We didn't take advantage of our opportunities. We missed a beautiful opportunity on a fake punt that could have blown the game open. So we just didn't execute. We didn't play, but I don't think it's soft. I don't think that we're soft. I don't think the guys are soft. But I think that we definitely we need to play looser. Let's put it that way. And I think Ryan Day's got to attack this game against Georgia with a devil-may-care, got nothing to lose, going to go fast, going to use all 4 downs to get 10 yards, and we're going to roll the dice and let the chips fall where they may. And I think if he plays that way, if we get the 2020 Clemson Ryan Day, then nobody will be talking about soft anymore, because I don't believe that we're soft. And again, that's my opinion. And Kirk, you as a genuinely tough guy may have a completely different opinion, and I respect that, but that's where I'm at.
I think, we have some extremely tough guys on this team. Like Tommy Eichenberg is as tough as any kid we've ever had. I'm drawing this up on the board right now for you guys, where we've got this was the play. This was the touchdown that made it 10-10. It was 10-3 at this point. We're gonna break this down in the telestrator. But Jim Knowles, it was funny because we mentioned on BuckeyeScoop.com that we had some intel. They're going to be running some pretty exotic stuff. And people are like, what was the exotic? And again, an exotic defense means that it's crazy hard to block, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work. It means that it's really hard to block some different. So here you've got Jack Sawyer coming off the edge and he ends up dropping out. You've got JT Tuimoloau out at a super wide 9. You have both safeties. You have your strong and you have your free. And you have so you're bringing all these guys, and I'm going to break it down on the TV film, and you're bringing Tommy, and you're bringing Steele, and you're bringing Ty Lake. So Michigan blows this protection, and this thing is almost a sack for a loss of 8 yards on 3rd and 8. And instead, it turns into just an absolute monstrous play for Michigan where Cam Brown misses a tackle. Jack Sawyer can't quite get there. I do not, and again, this is easy for me being, second guess guy and whatever, but I do not like Jack Sawyer dropping into coverage because I think he needs to be pass rushing. And again, I know you got to mix it up sometimes. You got to drop the guy that leads the team in sacks into coverage, but I think, if you switch these two, if you put Steele out here in a 3-point and you make this 33 and he's coming up the edge, I think Steele makes this play because I think Steele's a much better athlete than Jack is. He's lighter, former running back. So we're going to actually go into the film room. I'm going to pull this one up so we can kind of break it down. But Nevada, your thoughts on, we did like a pre-show breakdown of kind of some of the things that we slipped up on. How close were we to actually beating Michigan? Which it sounds crazy when you look at the scoreboard, but how close were we?
Really close. And I'll play like that again. Look, I hate when you drop the defensive end / outside linebacker like that, except for when Solomon Thomas intercepts it against Arkansas and goes to the house or what, it's like those plays are bad when they don't work. In a 3rd and 8 situation, you're probably looking for one of those 8-yard slants that you're thinking McCarthy's going to run. And if he throws that, Jack's standing right there. And it just didn't work. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
Pressure is great, and we all loved, and it's funny because on the message board, man, we talk about Fred Puggich and the silver bullets and bringing the Donnie Nick or the safeties and uh, blitzing everybody from all over the place, and boy, Rob Kelly, and we love that stuff. But when it doesn't work, oh man, we are too aggressive. So it's I love it. I'll live with it. I'll ride with it. To me, I much prefer that than I do a more passive type of, less attacking type of defense. I think Knowles let it. He let it rip. It just didn't work. And as you say, when you look at the play, we were close on this play, like really, really close. And this is a pivotal point in the game. 10-3, you get a stop here. They punt the ball. You get the ball back. You up 17-3. It might be game over. Instead, it's touchdown 10-10, and we're sitting there scratching our head. But break the play down, and you can see how darn close this was to a big play for the Buckeyes.
Well, I mean, and the crazy thing is, Tanner McAllister. So I'm just running the whole thing all the way through. Tanner McAllister falls down right off the bat. So I mean, the crazy thing is he wasn't even the open guy. Watch this, right down the middle, right down the gut. That kind of makes you sick. I mean, there's nobody within 30 yards. Right, he's right on the block O, but you see Jack. That's why he comes over and just kind of jogs in with him. But when you break it down, I showed you that still photo frame of it. The pressure is obscenely good. The problem is, again, Jack just can't get there. I mean, he's not athletic enough. He's not quick enough. And I love Jack Story. I think he's a fantastic player, but he's a pass rusher. It's kind of like if you drop Myles Garrett in the coverage, it's like every offensive tackle in the universe is excited about that because you don't have your best pass rusher coming off the edge. But, we run double A gap with our two safeties. So Tyleek occupies the center. The safeties both at the A gap. That's Tommy. It's just an all-out blitz. And Michigan blows the protection. That's why you have, in general, just so you guys know, there should never be a free guy in the A gap in pass protection unless you're leaving for the running back. But here, the running back comes across the formation, takes the one safety. Nobody takes Lathan Ransom. I mean, he's just scot-free running at the quarterback, running a 4.4 40. And I mean, and the quarterback just makes a hell of a play off his back foot, fading away, drops it in. Receiver again makes a nice play. Our corner can't get him on the ground. I mean, he's just got to try to get a piece of him, hang on for dear life while Jack's rallying to the ball. And again, Jack, he caught some crap on Twitter because it looks like he slows down here. But like, I think that, he's trying to figure out where to go because it looks like here he might have a piece of him. Like, what, do you want to go spear your own guy? I mean, really, I mean, in a perfect world, obviously we're sitting here on a Thursday, a couple weeks removed. He takes a deeper pursuit angle and he gets there. But, this is just part of learning. And again, do I love dropping a 265-pound guy into coverage? Not really. If this is Steele, like if you just put Jack as a stand-up guy here and make that Steele Chambers and he's back here, he probably gets there. Because, I mean, Jack, for his, as he looks here, dropping out, I mean, doesn't look super smooth, but I mean, Steele is quick enough probably to get him down right there because he's, it's a game of inches and that's all you need. And he kind of trips him up, but I don't know. I love the pressure. It's a well-designed pressure. They looked at how these guys pass protect. They designed that. It worked magnificently, but you got to make the tackle. Like, I mean, the thing is you think that this is going to get home and the quarterback's going to be on the ground or, the thing that you bet on when you run this is that there's no way that he can make this completion. Falling away, drops it in. And if he does, it's not going to have any velocity on it because he's backpedaling and drifting. So it's not going to be like a frozen rope out to the sideline. But man, is it, it's hard. I mean, that's one of those ones that was really hard to watch. Nevada, your thoughts after we've seen that a couple of times? I don't know if I can take any more of it. It is it is a tough play to watch.
Well, it was, I think you said the great thing about that play was that Tanner McAllister had fallen down and his guy was wide open on that play as well. So,
oh God,
you look at that and you gotta, but I think what people have to remember is that every play is blocked. I'm short of a quarterback sneak or some sort of, fullback dive or something like that. Every play is designed to go for a touchdown. And, so, and every play, every defensive player is generally accounted for, with the exception of maybe one or two, which the running back or the wide receiver has got to defeat that guy, and if he does, it goes for a touchdown. And if nobody else gets hit, if everybody else on defense is accounted for, it is beating one guy for a touchdown. So people wonder, well, how can you just beat one guy and they score 4 long touchdowns or 5 long touchdowns? But it's like, well, that's what defense is.
Yeah.
And for Ohio State, it just was one of those games where they had multiple things go wrong. And my hat's off to JJ McCarthy on that one. That was a backbreaker, because when I saw the play in real time and I see the guy stream at the middle, I'm thinking, wow, we got him. Great call, Knowles. Great job. All these thoughts are going through my head, and all of a sudden it flips to, oh my gosh, I can't believe Michigan just scored. And from doing nothing, all of a sudden we're in a 10-10 ball game. So, it truly shows you it's a game of inches. But, I don't think we have systemic things wrong with the Ohio State defense. They really are matters of, individual player execution that we need to clean up. And you play a cleaner game against Georgia. You're going to have to play a really, really good game against Georgia. But you do, boy, we can be there to the end.
I agree, man. Again, like, this was a game where, again, when you look at the scoreboard, you look at the yards, you're like, oh yeah, you got your ass kicked, whatever. But like, you really break it down, man, it's like 5 plays and the score could be the exact opposite way. And again, I know that sounds like some silly cliche, but I mean, that was a great call. And I mean, I know it was a 70-yard touchdown. So again, Kirk, how could you ever say that? But it's like, the blitz got home. If our corner could just make the play, and again, maybe you can't run that because the corner can't make the play, or you got to leave a safety back, or, but if you just drop Steele into coverage instead of Jack, I mean, he makes that play and saves our ass on that. And we're fine. We hang in there. It's still 10-3 and they don't get that big shot. It sounds like a big shot of adrenaline for them. Then the next drive, they have the big, Cam Martinez, he gets turned about 8 different ways, by the same receiver, and it's a 70-yard touchdown there. So, it's a learning experience, man. You got to get these guys ready to go against Michigan. It's no joke. All right, we are going to go straight questions now. So what questions do we have? Keep firing them away. I'm scrolling through. Appreciate the super chats, guys. Again, those are always huge. Those are guaranteed answers for us. So let me see what else. Joe Moore Award. I think that's pretty much it's got to go to Georgia, I think. So Nevada, they announced the 2 finalists for Joe Moore Award are Michigan again, who won it last year, and the Georgia Bulldogs. I know me asking you about offensive line is kind of like you asking me about handicapping in Las Vegas. But your thoughts, do you think Georgia wins the Joe Moore Award this year?
I mean, maybe. I guess I got a 50-50 chance. Can I say that I don't care? And that,
yes, you can also say that you do not. You can say that you do not care.
I can say that I don't care. It's kind of like when I hear that they were announcing like the Polynesian Heisman that they were giving out or something like that. I'm like, wow, these file this under things that I just don't care about.
The Polynesian Heisman.
Yeah, they do. They had one. They had like the Polynesian Player of the Year, and I was thinking, man, I didn't think we could do that in the year 2022, but I guess we can. And no, but the best offensive line in college football. I mean, I'm Michigan, Georgia. I don't. Let's give it to Georgia. They get my vote.
Does that work for you? All right,
yeah.
Cody Swank. This is a great question. Nevada, why are people on the Ohio State hate train after losing 1 game? That is a tale as old as time. Go ahead, Nevada. Why is that?
Well, expectations at Ohio State are just impossibly high. And you talk about why the job is such a demanding one, and so it's such a pressure cooker. And for Ohio State fans, I just think we've been spoiled. We've been spoiled by our success. Jim Tressel made it look easy, beating his rival with 9-1 or whatever it was, and then Urban Meyer goes 7-0, and those guys made it look easy, but it wasn't easy. They were just legendary coaches. And I think now we're getting more back to a little bit more of a reality, a little bit more balanced type of thing, where we're going to win a couple, lose a couple, and have some issues. When we play against Michigan, Michigan's getting a little better. So I just think we've been spoiled. I think we've been spoiled, and so we all take these losses hard. But I just think we've got to get. We really have to take a step back. look at the rare air we are in as a program. And despite the disaster of losing, and trust me, losing to Michigan a second time in a row at home, in my book, is an unmitigated disaster. But we're still in the playoff. We're still one of 4 teams. There's 126 other teams that wish they were in our shoes right now. And, even if we'd have beat Michigan, we'd have 2 games to win the national championship. Well, we lost to Michigan, and we still have 2 games to the national championship. So, all things considered, we're getting a do-over. And there's been a lot of great Ohio State teams, great Ohio State teams that never got a do-over and wish that they had one more chance to right the wrong. Well, this team's got a chance to rewrite the story. So that's a great opportunity as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. And I'm telling you that, nobody cares about winning the Big Ten. Big Ten championship doesn't mean anything. I won it my last 3 years, 5, 6, 7, won one in 2010. Nobody cares. All that matters is winning the Natty. If you don't win the national championship, season's a failure. Just is what it is. We can go win a Rose Bowl, and that's the beauty about right now is the dream's alive. You have a chance to be the best Ohio State team of all time. You do. And I know that sounds insane for me to say that out loud, but you go beat the Georgia Bulldogs, then you go beat Michigan. You're the best Ohio State team of all time. It's not even close. And wow, do you rewrite the last month worth of records? And holy cow, do I hope that happens? Because that, for some of these kids that are heartbroken and broke down and beat down and whatever, there's nothing in this universe I would love more for some of these guys to go out with big wins and, and again, they're going to have to play the highest level that they've played all year. Because again, it's hard to get ready for Georgia when you're playing Indiana and Rutgers and Antarctica and Jacksonville State and all these other teams that we play in the regular season. But, we can do it. I mean, we've got a quarterback who's going to the Heisman ceremony for the second straight time. We've got the best receiver in the world, in Marvin Harrison Jr. We've got Emeka, who I think is a top 5 receiver in the country. We've got Trey. If we can get anything out of Trey, Mayan, Dallin. We have Paris Johnson, who's a top 10 pick at left tackle. I mean, we've got a lot of talent. And a lot of these guys are playing for their NFL stock. So, a lot of these guys are declaring the minute the clock says all zeros, and they either win the title or they lose a game. So these guys got a lot to play for, man. And these NFL scouts, I can't imagine a game this entire season that'll have more scouts than Ohio State versus Georgia. I can't even imagine. It'll just be completely insane. But I'm excited for these guys. Another question. Emil Robinson, this is a great question. Nevada, do you believe that Michigan played their best game of the year against us? Great question.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they rose to the occasion. They played well. I mean, and again, we could break down individually, but really it came down to McCarthy. I mean, McCarthy played better than I've ever seen him play, better than I thought that he was capable of doing. And that's a credit to him because he did it. He did it under really extreme circumstances and made some big plays and was opportunistic with his legs, really showed a toughness there. And when they were around the goal line and they had that play to go up 2 scores later in the game, kind of ice the game, what they do, they ran the quarterback and he got that yard and got in the end zone. So no, I think they definitely played their best game of the year at a good time, and that's why more than anything, I'd love to get another shot at those guys in the national championship. There would never have been a bigger story in the history of Ohio State football or college football in general than Ohio State Michigan 2 for the national championship. Absolutely unprecedented. Be the biggest television game of all time. Be the most expensive college football ticket of all time. And as Ohio State fans, we'd get to live that one together. So it's that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, one could dream. I mean, you literally could design a national championship ring that's just a giant pair of gold pants. That'd be pretty spectacular. I mean, I played at the 1-2 game. There's nothing like that. That's the game everyone always talks to me about. They were there or they heard about it, they watched it, and we kind of sold our souls to win that one, and we won it, and then we laid an egg against Florida. It was like, I always say it was like at Lake Placid when, Team USA, they beat the Russians, and nobody ever talked about the fact they had to go beat Finland to win the gold medal. And Herb Brooks, who's a genius, was like, well, if you guys lose this one against Finland, then that massive win against, the greatest hockey team that's ever been assembled doesn't mean anything, you know. So that's it's going to be, you know, these guys they got to play out of their minds and out of their skis to beat the Georgia Bulldogs, but they've got the talent to do it. Again, this isn't like, some 1AA score, some max score going to play Georgia. Like most people the week before Michigan had us as the 2 seed. So, we thought we were going to see Georgia at some point. We ended up seeing them a game earlier than we projected, but hey, I'd rather go see them down there because, again, all of the variables are flipped to Georgia. It's down there. It's going to be loud. They're going to have home field. They've played in that building. Every year they play in the SEC championship there. They played in, they play in the kickoff classic there. They've played a lot in that building. We've never been in that building, so it's all against us. So, again, it's like going to fight Ivan Drago in Moscow. It's the same difference in the USSR. It's like, that's how you got to kind of treat it. You're not going to get any edges down there, and everywhere you go, you're going to see nothing but black and red with Bulldog colors and Bulldog hats and shirts and jerseys. And, these guys got to lock in. I mean, it's kind of fun to play in that environment where that you're the dog and everybody hates you, and it is what it is. This is a great question from B. Coles. Appreciate you asking this one. This is a big thing we talk about on BuckeyeScoop.com. We always have our Showtime guys that are the big guys that pop during bowl practice. There's always a handful of guys. They raise their stock up. This is a very important time for young players, freshmen, maybe sophomores. If you're a third-year guy and you're still in Showtime, you better strap up and get going, man, because they're going to move on without you. But I remember Showtime during practice is like scrimmaging at the end, or you get these young guys kind of see what you got, kind of start mentally building your spring depth chart for 2023. Nevada, are any under-the-radar players primed for a huge game in the playoffs? Also, any young guys due for some more reps?
Well, I guess my 2 guys, if I had to pick one on offense and one on defense, I'm going all in on Jaden Ballard. I think not only is he poised for a big 2023, I think he could actually make some noise in the playoffs. So that could be kind of a sleeper. And defensively, Sonny Styles. I mean, Sonny Styles is a guy that I felt he should have gotten more run during the regular season, but they may actually have a specialty role for him going forward, and you may actually see him more than people think. Then again, people may go, "Oh, Nevada, I don't know about that," but we'll see. Sonny Styles, Jaden Ballard, mark that one's down.
I think Sonny's got a, that's one of all the perplexing guys that I thought was really going to take off. Sonny Styles is a guy. I mean, we're playing Wisconsin, when Wisconsin was still, pretty good early in the season, still, in the top 20, the big night game. Sonny Styles in the 4th play of the game. I remember watching the film and I was like, damn, he's in early. I mean, you're in the 4th play of the game with Wisconsin, and he's coming off the edge, and he smokes their fullback. They got a really good fullback, tough kid, and Sonny just came off the edge and just killed him. They're running their typical lead play. So someone's going to take on that fullback and delete the fullback from the play. And Sonny did it. And I was like, holy shit, we got to get this kid in the game more. And then, he just kind of played garbage time. And again, like one of the things that I always have beef with how we run the program now is like, we just don't pull our starters like ever until there's like 3 minutes to go in the game and we're up by 80 points. Then we pull the starters finally. But Sonny's a guy that I thought should have gotten more reps. I think that even that blitz package that we broke down, have him be the safety blitzing in the A gap. I mean, he's as big as a house. He's a 4-4 guy. Have him instead of Lathan Ransom go and leave Lathan back, or have him be the drop guy. Instead of Jack Sawyer. Again, it's easy to say it all now, but he's as big as a defensive end and he runs like a cornerback. So he's a guy that if you put him in a Georgia Bulldog outfit, he'd look like a Georgia Bulldog guy. He's like one of those kind of like SEC, Alabama, Georgia freak show defensive talents that is only going to be here for 3 years. Because let's be real, that kid, he didn't graduate high school early to stay at Ohio State for 4 years. Like he's going to be out here. He's got 2 years left of playing here. He's going to get drafted very high. I'm sure he'll test well. He'll be right at 20 years old. But I totally agree with Sonny. The one that's going to be intriguing to me is can Matt Jones go? Or are we going to be rocking with Enoch and Josh Fryer? Because, I mean, those guys, literally, the right guard, I pray that Matt Jones go because he's been the starter all year, he's played well. But you're going to be going against Jalen Carter, 88 on your screen right now. best defensive player in the country, and he is a twitched up dude. He's a very, very active pass rusher. He is a load for whoever's going against him. So, if Enoch's going to make his second career start, or you're going to put Josh Fryer in there, like, you got to help that guy. You got to have Luke Whippler slide to that side every single time. He lines up a lot over the right guard. You can kind of target where he's going to be at, and you have to take the protection to him every time, or else it's like Aaron Donald. Like, if anytime you leave Aaron Donald one-on-one with your guard, he's going to lose. Like, it's kind of what this guy's not quite on that level, but he's going to get drafted higher than Aaron Donald. I promise you. Aaron Donald went, I think, 9th in the draft or 8th. He went right after the Browns took Josh Gilbert. So this guy's going to go ahead of that. And I mean, if he went 2nd or 3rd overall, wouldn't surprise me at all. He's that good. Trying to see what else. Would love to see a Julian Fleming breakout game. Nevada, is that possible? Has Julian hit his ceiling? Is he kind of is what he is, or do you think he's got another gear he can get to?
I think he is what he is, and that's okay. I think he is what he is, and he can help us. But I think we need a little bit more explosion out of that position, and that's why I'd like to see a little bit more Xavier Johnson. As crazy as that sounds, like we talked about Jaden Ballard. I'd like to see some guys, come in there that can provide a little bit more, maybe play with a little bit more fluidity, and I think we will. I think we will in the bowl game. But that's not a knock on Julian. It's just a recognition of where he is as a player.
Yeah, and we ran some plays that I absolutely loved early in the game. We ran kind of an orbit motion handoff to Xavier, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite runs. It was nice, easy blocking. Really, DeJuan is the only guy that has to get a block. Then our edge guys, our receivers have to get a block. But I mean, we got 8-9 yards on that, and I was like, I'd run that 5 times a game and keep it nice and easy. And I think you need more of that. I think a guy that needs more carries in the running game is Emeka Ibuka, because he's like a Robert Woods. He's a guy that can really do some amazing things with the ball. I just think you have to manufacture touches for him. You don't have to throw everything downfield to him, but he's kind of that Percy Harvin-ish type guy who's a great receiver, but he's got the toughness of a running back. He's got the ability to run. I'm not saying hand it to him out of the backfield. I'm saying motion him in. The little jet sweep touch pass, the little orbit motion handoff. Because again, when those guys are great returners, they're generally elusive guys that are good runners too. And again, I wish Jaden was better at catching punts, because he should be our punt returner instead of Emeka. But Brian Hartline puts Emeka back there because Emeka's the most sure-handed, relaxed guy on the team at catching a punt. You see him back there, and it doesn't matter if there's 6 guys around him screaming at him, yelling at him. He catches it just as smooth as butter every time. And generally, as much as we're fair catching, it's pretty amazing. So, Nevada, the NIL stuff. Appreciate you, Jay Burke. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're gonna wrap this thing. We try to keep it at about an hour, a little bit over an hour. Nevada, you got any closing thoughts for everybody? We got to get on the boards, guys. I mean, it's Buckeye Scoop. We got a bunch of new stuff coming in. Signing days in 2 weeks. Bill Greene did his chat all day. It was fantastic. Nevada, I'm going to head to the boards. I know you're going to head to the boards. Any closing thoughts on this, on the NIL, on the Jackson Smith-Njigba, on the Georgia game? Anything you want to wrap this thing up with?
I really think this game's going to be a close game, and the more I study the game, the more I talk to people around the game, the more and I didn't always feel that way when the matchup was initially announced. I wasn't sure which side I was going to be betting, which side I was going to be going on, where the money was going to be going, how the game was going to be going. But I like the spot for the Buckeyes. I think it's going to be a very, very entertaining game, and I think for Ohio State fans, they should be really excited for the 31st, because it's going to be a barn burner. And Ohio State's not going to get blown out. They're not going to get blown out. They're going to go in. They're going to be ready. And I think they'll come out of the gate strong. The question is, how does Georgia respond? How quickly do teams adjust? And can can Ryan Day keep the pedal down the whole game for 60 minutes? And I know that they're saying they're going to. They're talking about doing their game planning that way. We'll all see if he can do it, and I can't wait to see the game.
Yeah, I can't either. I think it's a huge legacy game for Ryan Day. I mean, there's a little bit of a stench with the 2 Michigan losses in a row when we've owned them. Literally one loss in 2011 in that kind of forgotten season where Luke Fickell was throwing the keys kind of last minute. But God, man, what a chance for his legacy. He got Georgia, and then you potentially have Michigan, and Georgia they are the King Kong of college football right now. And, again, I think that they're a lot more formidable defensively than that 2014 Alabama team was. That 2014 Alabama, I mean, they gave up 600 yards to Auburn in the Iron Bowl. I remember watching that tape, and I was like, man, these guys they're really talented, but man, they're getting their asses kicked by Auburn. Auburn's offensive line that year in 14 was dominating those guys. And I was like, Reese Dismukes, who won the Remington, was pancaking their interior guys. I was like, I think we can block these guys. And Zeke was kind of coming on, and then he just popped. And I remember I was talking to Matt Miller, the NFL draft expert, and I was like, remember the name Ezekiel Elliott, because when I watch him, I see Marshall Faulk. Like, that's who he reminds me of. He's got smooth hands. He's explosive. He's tough. Can do literally everything. Great pass blocker. And then he just shot like a rocket. Wisconsin, followed by Alabama, followed by Oregon. Ends up being a top 5 pick. So there's some guys that can do that. And we're going to be talking about them on Buckeye Scoop. So we're going to wrap this thing up. We're going to head to the message boards, buckeyescoop.com. If you guys are not members and you guys are humongous Buckeye fans, it is the place for you. We are the fastest growing community. Our board is literally on fire. It never stops. It's always on. There's always people talking football, always talking Ohio State, talking recruiting. Bill Greene did a chat literally for 10 straight hours today, answering your questions, talking NIL, inside stuff, inside practice, inside Woody Hayes stuff. It is really fun. We love bringing you guys the goods, and you guys are a fantastic, the people that are in the community are just fantastic people. So appreciate you guys. If you guys are looking for a great Christmas gift, an annual to buckeyescoop.com is the way to go. I think you guys would love it. Again, the people that sign up, it's almost like Hotel California, because once they're on it, man, they never want to leave, because they want to check it as soon as they wake up in the morning, and they check it as soon as they get ready to go to bed at night. So that's always good to hear. Appreciate you guys that tell me the great feedback. We work really hard at it. Great community, exceptional group of people, and it's just a fun place to be. So we appreciate you guys. We're going to head to the board. We got some new tea popping up. My phone has been going off this entire time, so new stuff is popping right now. I'm going to go put some of that on the board. So appreciate you guys. Hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. We're going to be doing these a lot, man. 7 o'clock at night, maybe 6:30-ish. We'll be going live. So appreciate your questions. Excellent questions. If you guys want to be a part of the best community in the game, buckeyescoop.com. You guys have a great rest of your night. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks. Beat the Bulldogs.